Massachusetts regulators and OSHA say ground cannabis dust a hazardous chemical following True Leave worker death. Regulators outlined recommendations and rules related to creating a safe working environment for those working with cannabis. 2 years after the death of Lorna McMurray at a Massachusetts marijuana manufacturing facility owned by Florida-based True Leave Cannabis Corporation, state and federal regulators labeled ground cannabis dust as a hazardous chemical for employees, according to a new health and safety bulletin. McMurray's sudden death was attributed to inhalation of the dust, which triggered a fatal asthma attack. The Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission said this week that it's urging marijuana businesses to closely adhere to workplace safety guidance from the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration in order to keep workers safe, and that OSHA has been on the proverbial warpath to enforce relevant rules. Going forward, the Commission is advising licensees engaged in marijuana processing to protect employees from hazards associated with cannabis dust exposure by using engineering controls like local exhaust ventilation, plus administrative controls like limiting employee exposure during the workday, the CCC said in a press release. The Commission recommends that licensees provide personal protective equipment and appropriately manage medical situations when they arise. The bulletin notes that while True Leave eventually settled the question of legal culpability this past summer with both the state and OSHA with a $350,000 fine to the state and its initial $15,000 fine to OSHA, regulators have since cited other cannabis companies in Massachusetts and other states for also failing to evaluate and classify ground cannabis dust as a hazardous chemical. Federal law, the bulletin notes, requires that employers evaluate the hazards of chemicals they produce and prepare safety data sheets to convey the hazard to downstream customers and exposed workers. All licensees should be aware that ground cannabis dust is a hazardous chemical and that OSHA has issued citations to licensees who have failed to evaluate and classify accordingly. The bulletin warns, licensees should evaluate the workplace safety and health risks, including but not limited to skin and respiratory sensitization by an allergen associated with ground cannabis dust generated during the processing of marijuana in the workplace. Since this is a long, long story, so I'm going to stop it there. I think we get it. I have had personal experience with this. I've worked in a trim room. I've worked on the farm. I've been in a spot where tons of hash and trichomes and leaf particulate is in the air, and it is no fun. It's not good for anybody. If you've worked in that environment for any length of time, you end up wearing a mask or something pretty quickly, unless you're kind of daft, I suppose. So to me, this is a common sense thing. I don't understand how large processors don't already just immediately understand that there's dust and trichomes everywhere and that breathing that is terrible for you. It's just obvious. So I'd love to hear what everybody else has to think.
Rico, you with us?
Yeah.
Oh, Rico. Man, I'll tell you what. True Leave. I can't believe that this is that now they're taking this position after someone died in one of these facilities in their state.
Well, before they took that position, they made sure to get their fines reduced as well.
That's exactly part of my point.
They don't give a damn. You know what? Kim Rivers' kitchen table costs more than they paid for that woman's life.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, that's facts.
And you can't, it's not like they didn't know. Mm-hmm. There's no way that they had that large of a facility and that the employees hadn't said something. In fact, if I remember right from that story 2 years ago, people had said something. I think she had actually mentioned that she was having problems in the weeks and months leading up to the fatality, and they just ignored it. So this is a common sense thing that they just ignored because they had to put in some ventilators and ask people to wear masks.
Yeah. And Nick says in the chat, he says, this is why having air quality professionals create a safe air plan for your facility is so pivotal.
Absolutely.
Nick's selling today. Nick's selling.
He's trying to help them out.
I hear you. Listen, I mean, worked for a facility in Colorado for one day because they were basically, I was coming in to be management and to be upper management, but their company policy is you have to go through all the steps, right? So like you have to start, well, not all the steps. You have to start in like the cultivation in the trim room, work that, however many shifts, whatever, and then you're moved to whatever position you're going to be in. So day one, I go in, their shit's covered with PM. I ask for a mask. I'm like, this is gross. Probably should be sending this off and not whatever. And they got all weird because I asked for a mask. I'm like, you know what? I got to go. That facility was owned by doctors. P.S.
Yeah, shout out to the young jerks, man. Shout out to the young jerks, my man Mike over there, who broke the story first when nobody would really pick it up. Even the local news would not pick this up out in Massachusetts, and he was the one who put it on blast and got national recognition for the Lorna McMurray story. And remember, we've been covering this story from the absolute jump. Yep. And it's a shame what came of it and how long it's taken for them to even take action, right? And so
especially when you see Rico how much money they put into a failed initiative,
right? And they pulled all of that out. They pulled all the True Leave locations out of Massachusetts, and the community that was safe harboring them and would not speak an ill word of them suffered immensely because of that. All those jobs were lost, all for what, right? And so maybe there's a little bit of optimism into this new administration that's coming in. Maybe they can reform the shit out of OSHA too and find out what the fuck happened out there and why True Leave got that less than a slap on the fucking wrist for this woman's life.
Yeah, facts.
Straight up.
Facts. I've seen code violations more expensive than that fine.
Real talk. You can get a Honda Civic cheaper than that, bro.
You can get probably 3 Honda Civics for that.
Just saying. No, it needs to be done. I think we're all on the same page there, and workplace safety should be paramount. And I know you don't like it, Jason. I know a lot of people don't like it when I bring up the union talk, man. But unions do have a place, and that's to protect workers in situations like this.
But here's the counter to that is they have unions in Massachusetts, and the unions didn't really protect this situation. Didn't do nothing.
They weren't allowed to be unionized at the time. We covered that part of the story too.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, still the unions still should have been stepping up just out of the fact
that
they
couldn't. They tried, and they're the ones who amplified the story.
Where is the personal responsibility for all of the employees who are witnessing this happen and not standing up to their bosses and saying, "We will quit"?
Capitalism, man.
Bro, people still got to pay their rent, bro. People, you can't fault them for that.
That's insane. That's insane. We're being
there's a lot of people
into needing to pay rent. So
there's a lot of people that
risk our lives.
There's a lot of people that will do that. Yes.
The town was dead. The town was dead before True Leave came in.
That makes no sense.
There was no economic. There was no jobs there. There was no jobs there, bro.
Nobody, not even the mayor wanted to talk about it because True Leave produced so many jobs in that small town. Like that small town in Massachusetts. What was the name of the town?
I don't remember the name of the town.
I don't know, it's blowing my mind. But they had more jobs and more licenses, more cannabis licenses in this small town than Boston.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you have to realize how many people witnessed this going on and let it keep going on.
Oh, that's the point.
Nobody took personal responsibility besides her. Clearly, she spoke
in the
up.
Absence of money,
clearly,
you're asking people to choose between putting food on their table and snitching.
No, I'm asking people to hold the companies that they work for accountable. That's called personal responsibility. That's how we actually maintain.
What happens? This is what we call like abuse of power. This is why a lot of people don't call out their bosses for sexual harassment because they're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of being able to pay the bills, bro.
Stop being afraid of losing your job. There's way greater things to be afraid of.
Not in Holyoke, Massachusetts. There aren't way greater jobs to get.
But that's a mental thing.
It's not, Jesse. It's not, Jesse, because I've watched cannabis companies go in and save towns that have completely lost all industry. If there are no jobs available and you have children to feed, unfortunately, people aren't going to stand up. And you might disagree with that, and that's totally fine. It's not the right thing to do. I stand up and say shit, and that's why I have 3 fucking friends, right? But people aren't going to do that when they have 6 kids at home and they finally got a fucking job because there's finally a company big enough to employ them in Holyoke.
Well,
pick the
this is going to
battles.
keep happening until people as individuals are willing to group together and stand up against things like
Well,
that.
I think
keep on
at this
happening.
point, because it's happened and the woman has died and it's been exposed to this level, I would take the onus off of the other employees at this point, and I would say it's going to keep happening because the government cowed down to Kim fucking Rivers and truly knocked these fines down and said, hey, Kim, we care less about this woman's life than we do about your continued tax revenue generation.
Yep.
That's my point. That's exactly my point. That's why it lands on the shoulders of the people. Because you can't depend on the government to actually do the right thing here. They never will. They never have.
If the government wanted to do the right thing, they'd do away with capitalism. But that's not what
Stop it.
governments do.
Stop it.
That's not what governments do.
Stop it.
That was a joke argument.
I look at Dr. T with the
That's what
thumbs
they
up.